Chapter 2784. Wasn't that an old acquaintance? Luo Qingtong would never have thought that Ji Feiyu would propose marriage to Mo Zhuling, that young lady from the Star Alliance, that woman who coveted her man on the True Spill continent. In order to get Yi Chenxian, she even tried to use the power of the Star Alliance to force him to bow his head. According to Suiyu and the others, Mo Zhuling and Ji Feiyu had been engaged since they were young. In other words, that woman, Mo Zhuling, even though she had Ji Feiyu as her fiancé, she still dared to provoke her man. Motherf ***, this was simply too much. Luo Qingtong didn't know what to say. She looked sympathetically at Ji Feiyu, who was not far away. She only felt that he was being cheated on. But since he was Mo Zhuling's fiancé, would he be her enemy in the future? Luo Qingtong thought of this and suddenly felt conflicted. She didn't have a bad impression of Ji Feiyu. When Qin Xiong was dealing with her, he tried his best to protect her. He was tolerant and gentle, and it was hard to tell that he was a young master from an 8-star region. He didn't have the slightest bit of arrogance. If possible, Luo Qingtong didn't want to be his enemy. Thinking of this, she suddenly asked Suiyu and the others, does your young master like that young lady from the Star Alliance? It would be best if he didn't like her, then there wouldn't be any conflict between them. However, as soon as she said this, Suiyu and the others looked at her strangely and then asked, "Why are you asking this?" "Let me tell you, Xiaoqi, you can't like our young master." Suiyu and the others already knew Luo Qingtong's name. Of course it was Luo Xiaoqi. Suiyu and the others also knew that it was an alias. In fact, it was Ji Feiyu who asked Luo Qingtong to use an alias. It was easy for Qin Xiong and the others to remember her real name, but if she didn't use her real name, it would be very inconvenient in her daily life. Therefore he asked Suiyu and the others to tell Luo Qingtong to think of a name and not use her real name. There was no need to let them know her real name so that they wouldn't accidentally call her by the wrong name and bring trouble to Luo Qingtong. He was thoughtful, and Luo Qingtong also had the same idea, so she said her real name. At this moment, Suiyu and the others were looking at her with a serious expression. "Our young master already has an engagement with someone. This time we're here to propose marriage. It's impossible for him to be involved with another woman's shueti. Xiaoqi, your identity, your status." Suiyu couldn't help say teat is not. With our young master's status, even if he can't cultivate, there are countless people in the 8-star region who will send themselves to him. The reason why he's engaged to Mo Zhuling is because of a promise made by the former head of the family and the leader of the Star Alliance. Therefore, Xiaoqi, don't be stupid. It's really impossible between our young master and you. Hearing their words, Luo Qingtong didn't know what kind of expression to show. She just asked Ji Feiyu if he liked Mo Zhuling so that she could be sure whether he would be her enemy in the future. Where did these people's thoughts go? Damn it. Nowadays we're all maidservants so good at imagining things. Chapter 2785. I didn't say that I like your young master. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched as she tried to explain herself. She was just about to say that she already had someone she liked when she heard a curious voice. "What are you talking about?" Ji Feiyu had just eaten and was walking around to digest his food. When he walked over, he happened to hear the last 2 words that Luo Qingtong said. Seeing that she mentioned him, he walked over. His white hair was fluttering, his face was like jade, and his eyebrows were like green mountains. He was indescribably clear and clean. His voice sounded. Before Luo Qingtong could speak, Suiyu, who didn't notice that it was her young master who walked over, opened her mouth and said, "We are saying that little Qi likes young master." "Young master?" When Suiyu said the last sentence, she happened to see her young master's face appear in front of her. Her eyes instantly widened and she almost spat out the food in her mouth. Oh my god. Why did young master appear here? And Luo Qingtong was even more depressed than her. What kind of misunderstanding was this? What the hell? That young master, it's not what you think. Luo Qingtong saw that Ji Feiyu was completely stunned and immediately explained, I already have someone I like. This was all a misunderstanding. Luo Qingtong was about to say this, but she saw Ji Feiyu quickly look at her and then hurriedly turn and leave. "I know this is all just a joke. I'll treat it as if this matter never happened." When he said this, he immediately left in a hurry. If she ignored his red ears and stumbling footsteps that almost made him fall, Luo Qingtong really thought that he was telling the truth. What the hell, this was a big misunderstanding. How was this not happening? The other party clearly took it seriously. What the hell? Sister Suiyu? I really don't like your young master. Luo Qingtong looked at Suiyu and the group of valiant maids. She really clenched her teeth so hard that they almost broke. She had really been wrongly blamed for this. If that damn man Yi Qianxian came to True Spill Continent to find her and found out that she had fallen in love with someone else, how was she going to explain it to him? How could she be so deceitful? If she had known that a casual question would lead to such a tragic outcome, she would have covered her mouth just now. Her heart was stifled. Luo Qingtong had a depressed expression. Finally, Sui Yu and the others realized that they had misunderstood. Little Qi, you really don't like our young master? Sui Yu carefully asked. No. Luo Qingtong looked at her with resentment. I have someone I like. To be precise, it's my fiancé. The others SSSTs also TSSTs. If not for this, they would not have misunderstood. I was just casually asking. Luo Qingtong gnashed her teeth. Who knew you would think that I like your young master? If she knew this, she wouldn't have opened her mouth. When Luo Qingtong's words came out, Sui Yu and the others were suddenly dumbfounded. If that was the case, they really made a big mistake. What should we do? Should I explain to the young master? Sui Yu said. She looked at Luo Qingtong with eyes full of guilt. She really didn't mean it. But who would have thought that Luo Qingtong was just casually asking? She thought that Luo Qingtong was interested in her young master, so she asked such a question. After all, they had met many people like that before. That was why they tried their best to persuade Luo Qingtong right away. Chapter 2786. The corners of Luo Qingtong's lips twitched slightly. It would be best if she could explain it clearly, but she was afraid that it would only make things worse if she tried to cover it up, and Ji Feiyu would misunderstand her even more. F***ck, Mo Zhuling stole her man, and she was forced to steal the other party's man. What kind of ill-fated relationship was this? Mo Zhuling's 8 characters just didn't match with hers, right? Luo Qingtong suddenly had a headache as she thought about it. After Ji Feiyu went back for a while, he also thought it through. At that time, Luo Qingtong's expression was very strange. When he suddenly heard Sui Yu and the others' words, he was shocked and didn't notice it. Now that he thought about it, the other party didn't seem to like him. He was afraid that Sui Yu and the others misunderstood. Fortunately, he didn't say anything bad at that time. Ji Feiyu thought about it and immediately felt relieved. He was a generous and gentle person. He was really a gentle person. At that time, when he heard Sui Yu say that Luo Qingtong liked him, his first reaction wasn't to scold Luo Qingtong, nor did he think that she was overestimating herself. She clearly knew that he was engaged and still liked him. Instead, he immediately said that it was just a joke. He wouldn't take it to heart and wouldn't take it seriously. He would just pretend that it didn't happen. This wasn't just a tactful rejection. It was also protecting Luo Qingtong. After all, a girl's feelings and dignity couldn't be blasphemed. No matter what he said at that time, it could make Luo Qingtong embarrassed. It was better to just pretend that it didn't happen. But fortunately, it was just a misunderstanding. Thinking of this, Ji Feiyu heaved a sigh of relief. Otherwise, he really didn't know how to face Luo Qingtong. He was engaged. It was impossible for him to be entangled with someone else when he already had a fiancé. And Luo Qingtong didn't directly confess to him. It was difficult for him to explain it clearly to the other party. This would be the best result. Luo Qingtong had a headache for a while. When she found that Ji Feiyu's attitude didn't change, she immediately felt relieved. Obviously, the other party had realized that this was a misunderstanding. Thank the heavens. Otherwise, she would have to take the blame for being a green TB*TC. How wronged would that be? With that thought, Luo Qingtong heaved a sigh of relief. At this time, on the continent where the Star Alliance was located. Star Alliance headquarters. Wah. The sound of tools shattering could be heard. Mo Zhuling stood in the middle of the room. Like a ferocious ghost, he frantically swept through the items around him. Only after destroying everything did he stop, panting heavily. All of you scram. A bunch of trash. You still haven't found the whereabouts of that bitch Luo Qingtong. What do I need you for? As she spoke, she kicked away a Star Alliance martial artist who was half kneeling in front of her. Miss, the True Spill Continent is currently under a very strict investigation. Elder Fong and the several hall masters are taking turns to firmly guard that area, not allowing anyone to disturb them, especially the area where the Luo family is located. We really have no other choice. A Star Alliance martial artist braced himself and said. Ever since Mo Zhuling woke up from his serious injuries, it was as if he had gone crazy. He wanted to deal with the True Spill Continent. But that wasn't a place they could afford to provoke. The miss was really crazy. After the Star Alliance martial artist's voice sounded, Mo Zhuling's blood-red eyes suddenly glared at him. Then he fiercely shouted. Scram. The crowd hurriedly retreated. After they left, a mass of black fog instantly appeared in front of Mo Zhuling. Humph, you still haven't found the whereabouts of Luo Qingtong? Chapter 2787. Mo Zhuling clenched her fists when she heard that voice. She turned her head expressionlessly and looked at the black fog that had appeared in midair. She said coldly, "I've been looking for her all this time. Can't you see? You'd better find her as soon as possible. Otherwise, don't blame us for voiding our deal. Don't forget how you ended up with such a healthy body." Mo Zhuling's eyes were filled with extreme hatred when she heard the black fog's voice. She had been completely crippled by Situ Mei. Her entire body lay paralyzed on the bed like a pile of rotten meat. She could neither speak nor move. The pain all over her body was like ants gnawing at her heart. It caused her to struggle day and night in incomparable pain. No one could be like Mo Zhuling, whose bones, flesh, blood and internal organs had all been smashed into a pile of mush. Only her body was left intact and she was still alive. But she had survived. No matter what, she could not die. Mo Zhuling had begged her father, the leader of the Star Alliance, to kill her countless times with her eyes. The leader of the Star Alliance could not bear to see her suffer such torture. He was prepared to kill her so that she could be free. But in her body, where her heart was, there was a trace of power that Situ Mei had injected into her body. This trace of power allowed her to live for a long time. Unless she could destroy the power that had been injected into her heart, she would not die no matter what. Situ Mei was a strong cultivator in the Sky Martial State. How could the leader of the Star Alliance possibly destroy the power that she had left in Mo Zhuling's body? Thus he could only be powerless. Just as Mo Zhuling's heart was filled with despair, the black fog appeared. It had asked her to deal with Luo Qingtong, so it had helped her recover her strength and mobility. Mo Zhuling had been helpless at that time. Because of her current situation, she hated Luo Qingtong to the extreme. Because they both adored the man who was as handsome as a god. Why was Luo Qingtong able to enjoy his meticulous protection? Not only was she safe and sound, but the true Spill continent was also protected by that man, unharmed. But he himself had to struggle in such a hellish state and in such agony? What? Mo Zhuling's heart was filled with hatred. She had no way to retaliate against Situ Mei. Because of their status and strength, she simply could not deal with them. But she could deal with Luo Qingtong. Not only that, but the true Spill continent. She wanted Luo Qingtong to live a life worse than death. Moreover, she wanted her to suffer so much pain that she wished she was dead because of those people from true Spill continent. She wanted to let Luo Qingtong have a taste of all the pain that she had experienced. She wanted Luo Qingtong to know her pain and endless hatred. Chapter 2788. You don't need to use this to threaten me. My hatred for Luo Qingtong is no less than yours. I wish for her to live a life worse than death, but if I can't find her, what can I do? Mo Zhuling couldn't hide his hatred as he said, "Do you think I don't want to deal with her? But that man protects her like she's the apple of his eye." Within the Star Alliance, those elders and temple masters have also joined forces to oppose my father. I have no way to play any tricks within the true Spill continent. Otherwise, I would have already found her whereabouts. You're shouting so loudly here. Why don't you go investigate her whereabouts? With your strength, it shouldn't be a problem to find her whereabouts, right? Mo Zhuling's voice was ice cold. She didn't know the identity of this black fog that helped her, but it hated Luo Qingtong to the bone. It wished it could eat her bones and eat her flesh. In this case, if the other party couldn't find Luo Qingtong's whereabouts, then what qualifications did it have to shout in front of her? It had to be known that its strength was much higher than hers. If it couldn't find her, then how could it blame her for not doing a good job? As her words left her mouth, the black fog began to violently tumble. Mo Zhuling, I advise you not to anger me. Otherwise, although I won't immediately cancel the deal between us, I can still temporarily restore you to your previous state and let you savor the pain you felt at that time. With my strength, if I could directly deal with that slut Luo Qingtong, why would I need to find you? You'd better be smart. Otherwise, within the entire Star Alliance, I don't believe I can't find someone like you who can deal with Luo Qingtong. You'd better not force me. The voice that came from the black fog was incomparably cold. Obviously, when Mo Zhuling mentioned that it couldn't find Luo Qingtong and deal with her, it was very angry. Within the entire Star Alliance, as long as it paid enough, it could still find someone like Mo Zhuling who could be used by it. But such a person wasn't as useful as Mo Zhuling, who also hated Luo Qingtong. Because in order to take revenge on Luo Qingtong, Mo Zhuling could give up everything. But others might not be able to do so. Because of this, the black fog found Mo Zhuling. But this didn't mean she couldn't be replaced. If it was angry, it would still replace Mo Zhuling. At that time, Mo Zhulings, and Mo. As soon as the black fog spoke, a trace of fear flashed across Mo Zhuling's eyes. The madness and hatred in her eyes lessened slightly. She calmed down a little and said, "I didn't mean to provoke you. But I need time. I'm using you as an example to tell you that even someone as strong as you can't easily find out Luo Qingtong's whereabouts. It's even more impossible for me. So, we still need to take it slow." She said that she would give in and compromise, but her eyes flashed with humiliation and hatred. One day she would make everyone pay the price, including this black fog. How dare it threaten her? Mo Zhuling's SSSSSSSSS was shocking. "Humph." The black fog snorted coldly, then said, "You'd better hurry. Luo Qingtong, that woman is very strange." Chapter 2789. Her talent is extraordinary and her abilities are extraordinary. She can be called the best in the world. If someone like her wasn't born on a low-level continent, then who knows what degree she would have reached. You'd best not underestimate her. She hasn't appeared for so long. Perhaps it's because of that man. She's been taken to some place to cultivate, and at the same time she's hiding from those people from Heaven Capital. In this case you'd best be vigilant. Otherwise when you see her again she'll have surpassed your imagination. She'll have reached an unimaginable degree. As the black fog spoke, its voice became increasingly tense, as if it was trying to endure something. So you'd best find her as soon as possible. Otherwise once she cultivates will no longer be her match. Again? Hearing the black fog's words, Mo Zhuling instantly caught onto two different words. The black fog really did have a grudge against Luo Qingtong. Moreover, it was likely that the black fog had fought against Luo Qingtong before, and had suffered a loss under her hands. In other words, the black fog's previous strength might not have been so tyrannical. Otherwise, it wouldn't have suffered a loss under Luo Qingtong. After all, a person like Luo Qingtong was only someone from a low-level continent. If it weren't for that man with monstrous power, status and strength, then what was Luo Qingtong? However, it was also possible that the black fog's opponent had been so miserably abused by Luo Qingtong because of that man. Now she purposely made Luo Qingtong sound so formidable. Was she trying to save some face? As Mo Zhuling thought this, his heart was filled with disdain. However, she didn't show it on her face. She carelessly said, "I know, but you don't need to worry. When I saw her she had no strength at all. I thought she was a waste. But you said that her cultivation and strength were above the Saint realm. At that time she should have temporarily lost her strength because of some changes in the True Spill continent. So, even if she can recover, it's impossible for her strength to increase by much during this period of time. Of course, even if her abilities are extraordinary, so what if her strength has increased? I'll just take it that she has advanced to the venerable realm. But so what? Our Star Alliance has so many experts. Moreover, isn't there also that young Master Lu Yu whom I recently got acquainted with?" When Mo Zhuling said this he laughed joyfully. Young Master Lu Yu was the young master of an aristocratic family from the 7-star field whom she had met by borrowing the ability of the black fog. It was said that the Lu family that he was from had a very prominent status in that star field. Not only that, but the ancestor of the Lu family was also related to a family from a 6-star region. Over the years the two families had kept in touch. Chapter 2790. Mo Zhuling's expression was ice-cold. She didn't care what kind of disaster this matter would bring to the Star Alliance. She only wanted to achieve her goal. Moreover, when she was seriously injured, the Star Alliance didn't care about her life or death, right? Elder Fong and the others even wanted her father to expel her from the Star Alliance. In this kind of situation, why should she care about the life or death of the Star Alliance? She wanted them all to die. At this time, Luo Qingtong, Ji Feiyu, and the others had already arrived at the Star Alliance's headquarters on the mainland. The entire mainland was like a huge city floating in the starry sky. This was specially built by the Star Alliance for their headquarters. They spent a lot of manpower and resources. When they saw Ji Feiyu and the others appear and learned of their identities, the Star Alliance guards didn't dare to be negligent. They hurriedly welcomed them into the Star City. After Luo Qingtong entered the city like Star City mainland, she bid farewell to Ji Feiyu and the others. What a joke. If she didn't leave now, would she have to catch up with Mo Zhuling? She was afraid that the Star Alliance wouldn't be able to bear the scene of her and Mo Zhuling catching up. However, Luo Qingtong wasn't ready to fully recover her strength yet. Therefore, she didn't want to clash with the Star Alliance. Moreover, she had just made a mistake in confessing to Ji Feiyu and the others. Although it was clarified in the end, she still felt uncomfortable. Moreover, Ji Feiyu was Mo Zhuling's fiancé. It wasn't a good thing for her to get too close to him. What if that woman, Mo Zhuling, accused her of seducing her fiancé in order to get back at her? How wrong would she be? Luo Qingtong was determined not to take the blame for this green tea bitch. Therefore, the moment she entered Star City, she immediately bid farewell to Ji Feiyu and the others. She didn't even give them a chance to persuade her to stay. Ji Feiyu and the others couldn't persuade her to stay. In addition, Luo Qingtong was a young girl who was rescued by Ji Feiyu and the others midway. It was indeed inappropriate for her to follow them to meet the Star Alliance. At that time, the Star Alliance would think that Luo Qingtong wanted to rely on Ji Feiyu. Not only would it be bad for her reputation, it would also be disrespectful to the Star Alliance. After all, Ji Feiyu was here to propose marriage. Therefore, Ji Feiyu and the others did not chase after them. Humph. Seeing Luo Qingtong's figure leave, Qin Xiong coldly snorted. His eyes revealed an extremely cold and ruthless expression. He originally thought that Luo Qingtong would desperately cling onto the young master in order to avoid his revenge. He didn't expect her to actually leave. He originally wanted to let the Star Alliance deal with her, but now it seemed that there was no need for that. As he thought this, he was about to order his men to secretly follow them. However, he was stopped by Ji Feiyu's deep voice. Commander Qin, I seem to feel that something is wrong here. You and your men immediately come and protect me. Don't miss out on any of the places around me. If anything happens to me, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear the consequences. As he spoke, he raised his hand and ordered Sueyu and the others to move aside. He ordered Qin Xiong and the others to guard around his carriage. This action was naturally to prevent Qin Xiong and the others from chasing after Luo Qingtong. This would allow the young girl to leave this place as soon as possible. Chapter 2791. When his voice rang out, Qin Xiong and the rest immediately paused. Especially those guards who had just received Qin Xiong's order and were about to leave. When they heard Ji Feiyu's voice, they didn't dare to leave. After all, leaving one's post without permission was a serious crime. If something happened to the young master at this time, their entire family wouldn't be able to pay with their lives. A trace of anger flashed in Qin Xiong's eyes. He looked in the direction of Ji Feiyu and said angrily, "The young master is kind. He cares so much about a strange girl." Speaking of this, he gritted his teeth and sneered, "If I didn't know that the young master's fiancée is the young miss of the Star Alliance, I would have thought that Luo Shaoqi was our future young madam. But young master, don't let this subordinate talk too much." He said coldly and sarcastically, "The young master's body is weak and can't cultivate. Although the identity of the young miss of the Star Alliance isn't that great, she is still barely worthy of the young master. But other people might not be. The young master has taken a fancy to that Luo Shaoqi. It's okay to play with her. Don't take it seriously. Otherwise, if you bring her back to the family Ji and find out what kind of lowly identity she has, won't you be ridiculed? After all, the young master's matter is enough to make the family Ji a laughingstock. Don't you think so, young master?" Qin Xiong sneered and his words were aggressive. Every word of his actually stepped on Ji Feiyu's sore spot. Who didn't know that the son of the family Ji's first wife was a cripple who couldn't cultivate? The family Ji was ridiculed because of this. And this time, if Ji Feiyu's strength wasn't that weak, how could he, as the son of the family Ji's first wife, be pushed out to marry a girl from the 9-star domain? She was called the young miss of the Star Alliance, but her identity as the young miss of the Star Alliance might not even be as high as the first wife's daughter of a small family on their side. Marrying such a person would be a humiliation. On the other hand, Ji Feiyu was so pitiful and laughable that he actually wanted to protect an unknown girl. He was simply overestimating himself. Hearing Qin Xiong's words, Ji Feiyu's face instantly turned pale. His hands tightly grasped the patterns on his sleeves. He used all of his self-control to prevent himself from losing his composure in front of everyone. Sueyu and the others were already extremely furious. "How dare you? Qin Xiong, how dare you disrespect the young master?" "Humph, I'm just advising young master." "What's wrong?" Qin Xiong snorted coldly and arrogantly raised his head. He didn't put Sueyu and the others in his eyes at all. There was no weakness in his words at all. What could Sueyu and the others do to him? Even if the young master didn't have a reason to deal with him, with just his strength, what kind of threat could he pose to him? Umph. Thinking of this, Qin Xiong immediately sneered and waved his hand. "For the safety of the young master, That Luo Shaoqi must be thoroughly investigated. Otherwise, why would young master feel uncomfortable after she left? His words sounded. In an instant, Sui Yu and the others were shocked and angry. He was actually going to use the young master's words to deal with Luo Qingtong and then attack her. How could this be? "You Qingxiong, how dare you?" they shouted angrily. Why wouldn't I dare?" Qingxiong sneered. "I'm doing this for the young master." As he spoke, he waved his hand and ordered all the people around him to chase after Luo Qingtong. Their hearts were filled with pain. The group of maidservants cried their hearts out. Ji Feiyu tried to persuade them but to no avail. He could only let them be. He was just worried that Luo Qingtong would not be able to leave this place in time. Otherwise, Qingxiong and the others would cause more trouble. Thinking of this, Ji Feiyu sighed again. If only he could cultivate, it would be great. Unfortunately, thinking of this, he suddenly shook his head. He closed his eyes slightly and leaned against the wall of the carriage to rest, no longer making a sound. In an alley far away from Ji Feiyu and the others, Luo Qingtong had been waiting for Qingxiong and the others to catch up with her after leaving. If she guessed correctly, Qingxiong and the others would not let her go so easily. When they arrived, she would directly kill them. Anyway, in this Star City continent there were all kinds of people. Who would know that she did it? However, she waited for a long time but did not see the shadow of Qingxiong and the others. Chapter 2793. Let's go and watch the show. What's wrong? After that voice, another voice sounded, carrying a hint of doubt and surprise. Is there some grand event happening? Look at how hurried you are, all of you are rushing towards the main square. Hey, you don't know, but someone from the Star Alliance Academy is challenging the 7 ultimates of True Yen again. Oh my god, there's going to be a good show again. Did you forget? Last time, the people who challenged the 7 ultimates of True Yen were slapped in the face so miserably. Oh my god, I've never seen people from low-level continents being so powerful. At that time, the people from the Qinghong continent were beaten so badly that they lost their temper. They were even forced to change the name of their continent. It said that the people from the 7 ultimates of True Yen said that the word Qing violated their boss's taboo. Damn. You didn't see it, but that scene was so satisfying and satisfying. When have we, the people from low-level continents, ever been so arrogant and vindictive? The Star Alliance has always been the territory of the high-level continents and the top-notch aristocratic families. When have we ever seen people from low-level continents beat up people from high-level continents so miserably? This time, someone is challenging the 7 ultimates of True Yen again. Shouldn't we hurry over and watch the show? At the corner of the street, a group of people hurriedly passed by the entrance of the alley. Hearing their words, Luo Qingtong, who was about to turn around and leave, instantly paused. Then, her figure flashed and she chased after those people in front of her. Hey brothers! Luo Qingtong caught up with those people. Seeing that other than them, there were many people rushing over to the Star City's main plaza, she immediately asked, I just heard you mention the 7 ultimates of True Yen. I wonder if the 2 words True Yen are derived from the True Yen? The moment she said that, the group of people who were originally planning to ignore her immediately raised their heads and glanced at her. A young man looked at her and said, You actually don't know about the 7 ultimates of True Yen? Are you new to our Star City? He sized up Luo Qingtong's figure from head to toe, discovering that her strength was around the Saint Expert level. He immediately curled his lips and said, As expected, you are someone who has just left the continent. Looking at your strength and aura, you should be someone from a low-level continent, right? Only people from low-level continents would venture out of the continent at such a low level in order to increase their strength as quickly as possible. Otherwise, with such strength, it would be extremely dangerous in the star field. It would be extremely easy to die. Who would be so bored as to leave the continent? Chapter 2794. They looked at Luo Qingtong with surprise. After all, before the rise of the True Spill continent, no one had ever paid attention to this lowly continent. In particular, the geographical scope of the True Spill continent was located in the most remote part of the Star Wilderness. Normally, the people of the Star Alliance and high-level continents wouldn't go to such a place unless they had committed a crime or been exiled. Let alone knowing that there was a True Spill continent. And even if they knew, they wouldn't care about it, let alone know its name. But looking at Luo Qingtong's appearance, she clearly knew about this lowly continent. Have you been there before? Then you struck it rich. The young man said. He said to Luo Qingtong, This lowly continent is now one of the hottest influences in our Star Alliance. I heard that Elder Fong thinks highly of them, as well as many of the main hall elders and hall masters. Now they've been taken under their wings and are under their protection. The people of the True Spill continent are treated very well in the Star Alliance, much better than the people of other high-level continents. If you know someone from the True Spill continent, then you'll really soar to the heavens. Seeing that Luo Qingtong actually knew this continent, everyone looked at each other, their expressions much more enthusiastic. To these people from a lowly continent, even if they were recruited by the Star Alliance, their treatment was far inferior to that of people from high-level continents. But the people of the True Spill continent were different. The treatment they received in the Star Alliance was something that most people from high-level continents would be envious of. As everyone saw that Luo Qingtong actually knew someone from the True Spill continent, they naturally became much more enthusiastic. After all, the people of the True Spill continent were very united. Compared to the people of other lowly continents or even high-level continents, the people of the True Spill continent were simply a group of freaks. There wasn't the slightest bit of intrigue between them. Everyone was united as one, as if they were an iron plate, a single force. No, that wasn't right. Every influence would scheme against each other and frame each other, but the people of True Spill continent didn't have the slightest bit of such a situation. But anyone who knew this was very surprised and incredulous. But at the same time, this also created a situation. That was, wanting to win over the people of True Spill continent was extremely difficult. They didn't make friends with outsiders at all. They only helped each other. This made all those who wanted to build a relationship with them feel extremely frustrated. Now that they saw someone who could possibly know them, these people were naturally very enthusiastic. Luo Qingtong was also surprised after hearing their words. Were they really from the True Spill continent? At first she thought she had misheard. Luo Qingtong had originally planned to leave after not waiting for Qin Xiong and the others. After all, this was the headquarters of the Star Alliance. It wouldn't be good for her to stay here for too long. Moreover, since Qin Xiong and the others didn't chase after him, it meant that they might use other methods to deal with him. Luo Qingtong didn't want to ruin her foundation plan for a few pieces of trash, so she prepared to leave in time. As for information about the True Spill continent and the Star Alliance, she could casually ask around and find out. However, who would have thought that she would hear such heavy news? Chapter 2795. She didn't know who these 7 absolutes True Yen were. As for her grandfather and the others, they weren't in the Star Alliance headquarters. As Luo Qingtong thought this, she decided to stay and take a look. After all, if Grandfather Luo and the others were here, it would be meaningless for her to go back. Listening to the meaning of these people's words, True Spill continent's situation was very good. The people of the Star Alliance had properly protected it. Moreover, they had brought the people of True Spill continent out and settled them in the Star Alliance headquarters. If Luo Qingtong didn't guess wrong, most of the people of True Spill continent here were from the hidden world. This was because only by reaching the Saint Realm would one be able to walk in the outer space and withstand the tremendous pressure of the spiritual energy in the outer space. Only those with such strength would be able to cultivate in the outer space and enhance their strength. As Luo Qingtong thought this, she smiled and nodded towards this group of people. Yes, I do know several people from True Spill continent, but I didn't think that they would have such good fortune and be able to come to the Star Alliance headquarters to cultivate. I don't know if the people I know are among those people. As Luo Qingtong said this, she immediately went with them to the main square. In the main square, the largest martial arts arena was already filled with people. These people were all here for the 7 absolutes True Yen in the square. These 7 people were simply legends of a low-level continent. At such a young age, their strength had risen to the peak of the Saint Spirit realm. They were only a step away from the Saint realm. It had to be known that with such strength at their age, it was understandable if they were from a high-level continent. But they grew up in the lowest level of the continent. It was said that the spiritual energy in True Spill continent was incomparably barren. There weren't even many Saint Realm powerhouses. There were also very few Saint Spirit Realm powerhouses. Compared to other continents, it was simply incomparable. But these 7 people had emerged from such a continent. They had surpassed the strength of countless senior powerhouses and had reached the peak of the Saint Spirit Realm. This was enough to shock anyone. But what was even more shocking was their strength. Each one of them was at the peak of their realm. They were nearly invincible. Bang! In the middle of the training field, a man wearing high-grade continental clothing fell to the ground. In front of him was a pretty and cute girl in a pink robe. The young girl's face was elegant and pretty, and she looked as cute and soft as a little white rabbit. But it was this seemingly soft and harmless young lady who was in love with him. Her face was cold and so were her eyes. There was not a trace of emotion on her face. She was like a lifeless rag doll. Next. Her voice was cold as she waved her 10 fingers, scattering a silver light in the air. If someone were to pay attention, they would discover that she was holding a bottle of medicine between her fingers. She waved the bottles in her hands, the silver-white bottles creating a dazzling silver light in the air. Hidden beneath this dazzling technique was an extremely valiant and fierce attack. As a pharmacist, the opponent was actually a main combatant on the field. Not only that, but the man lying on the ground groaning was actually at the early Saint realm. An alchemist at the peak of the Holy Spirit realm had defeated a holy venerable realm cultivator. Holy shit. This was simply defying the heavens. Everyone in the martial arts practice field was dumbfounded by what they saw. How long had it been since they last saw the 7 absolutes of true spill? Was this really the weak and powerless pharmacist that could only rely on the protection of a martial artist? Chapter 2796. Damn. Has Xiaoxiao's ability to concoct medicinal liquids become stronger again? She's simply abnormal. It hasn't even been 15 minutes yet. She has already defeated a powerhouse who has just entered the Paragon realm. How can we live like this? I feel like my young heart has been deeply hurt. In a place near the middle of the training field, a few people were standing there. Among them, little Overlord Yuan was holding his heart with a sickly look on his face as he cried out in pain. Ling Yuer, who was beside him, slapped him on the head. It hurts my eyes. Shut up. No matter how miserable you cry, you won't be able to trick Xiao into concocting medicinal liquids as compensation. Yuan, who resentfully put down his hand that was holding his heart. Sigh, ever since boss left, Xiao has evolved into a steel-toothed little bunny. I get goosebumps when I see her now. If she continues to be so abnormal, I reckon we won't be able to get a single opponent today. Damn it. That medicine refining ability that can adjust and melt the opponent's spiritual energy according to the attribute of their spiritual energy is simply too unfair. As Yuan who said this, he suddenly felt a toothache. This ability was awakened by Su Xiao when they risked their lives to protect Luo Qingtong in the land of the fallen immortals. At that time, she had used the huge spiritual energy light pillar formed by the birth of the sector beast to concoct medicinal liquids. It was originally a gamble. But in the end, as if she had broken through a certain potential limit, she was actually able to concoct medicinal liquids according to the attribute of the opponent's spiritual energy. Damn. This time, the medicinal liquids concocted by Su Xiao instantly became extremely powerful. One had to know that the attacks of warriors and soul practitioners all relied on their own spiritual energy. Once targeted and destroyed, wouldn't that be bad luck? There had never been anyone like Su Xiao who could target the strength attribute of others. This time she had become the strongest person among them. That was also true. Her medicinal liquids still needed some time to take effect. Moreover, if people were too strong and their levels were too much higher than her, the medicinal liquids she could concoct would be greatly reduced, and the power would be limited. Otherwise, they had no doubt that she would be invincible throughout the world. Oh no, there was one more person. Su Xiao definitely couldn't defeat her and she wouldn't fight with her. That means he's the boss. Sigh, I wonder where boss is now and if he's doing well. Whenever I think of boss, I feel terrible. Why do you think our strength is increasing so slowly? Is the intensity of the training not enough? Yuan who said gloomily, why don't I go to Death Valley again after this competition? Death Valley, Star Alliance Academy's most famous training ground for life and death. It was also known as Hell's Valley with the highest death rate. As for Xuanhu and the others, they had walked through it more than once. Otherwise, their strength wouldn't have grown so much in such a short period of time. He was almost at the level of a paragon. Such an increase in strength was simply shocking. Of course, Luo Qingtong had left them the purification effect of the immortal jade bone, as well as the various resources provided by the Star Alliance. There was also the great breakthrough of life and death in the land of the fallen immortals, which increased their potential. But the most important thing was that they cultivated without any regard for their lives. Because only paragons could leave the star desolate domain and have the qualifications to go to other star fields to find boss. Thinking this, everyone suddenly felt indescribably depressed. Chapter 2797. Hold on. Ling Tianhan, what kind of skill do you think you have in bullying others like this? On the other side of the martial stage, another group of people was standing. At this moment, a man stood up and said. They were wearing the same clothes as the man who had fallen in the middle of the martial stage. It was obvious that they came from a high-level continent. In this academy created by the Star Alliance, the people of each continent had clothes that represented their identity. However, not every person from the continent could wear the clothes that represented their identity on the continent. Only people from high-level continents could. Or perhaps only the people of the continents that they recognized could do it. This rule was naturally not an official rule of the Star Alliance Academy, but was jointly formulated by the people of the high-level continents. Anyone who broke this rule would be met with unanimous hostility and suppression. At this time, besides the people in the corner of the martial stage, only Xuanhu and the others were wearing the uniform of the high-level continents. However, their clothes were very different. Although they were of the same style, the colors and patterns were different. But the word heavenly demon, embroidered on their robes, was exceptionally dazzling and eye-catching. It was impossible for anyone to overlook it, and the first thing they would see would be these two words. In the entire Star Alliance Academy, only the people of the true Spill continent were so unique. No one knew why they would use the word heavenly demon as a symbol, even though they were obviously from the true Spill continent. Moreover, the high-level figures of the Star Alliance Academy, or more accurately, the high-level figures of the Star Alliance Academy, had actually tacitly allowed such a violation of the rules to occur. It had to be known that in the past, even the most powerful families of the Star Alliance didn't dare to do this. This was because the other families wouldn't allow it. But now, a small true Spill continent had actually done it. And when someone complained to their own family, the hall masters and elders behind these families and family clans all refused to comment. They all tacitly approved of the actions of the true Spill continent's people. And some of the more troublesome juniors of their families were even suppressed by them themselves. Everyone was flabbergasted by what they had seen. It was also because of this that the people of the Star Alliance Academy knew just how high the status of the people of the true Spill continent was. He didn't lose out to some of the top aristocratic families and people from the high-ranked continents. However, no one knew why they were so favored by the higher-ups of the Star Alliance. Some people said that it was because they had discovered extremely important ruins and treasures in the true Spill continent. But, for some reason, only those of the true Spill continent could use them. This was the reason why the high-level figures valued them so much. There were also some people who said that this was because the people of true Spill continent were descendants of a high-level powerhouse who had made great contributions to the Star Alliance. But for some unknown reason they had declined. The higher-ups didn't know about their existence either. They were found later, so they were given great preferential treatment. Anyway, there were people who said all kinds of things. But no one knew that the true reason for this was that young girl from true Spill continent. Because of her existence, this low-level continent, which was clearly the trashiest and poorest continent in the Star Desolate domain, was able to leap to become the most popular existence in the entire star field. Chapter 2798. Because that was the first force created by Luo Qingtong. Once they joined Heavenly Diabolism, they would be Heavenly Diabolism's people for life. No matter where they went, no matter what other people called them, they were Heavenly Diabolism's people, boss's people. At this moment, Xuanhu looked at that person from the high-class continent who was shouting loudly and laughed coldly. He was in a bad mood. These people from the high-class continent were really courting death. Okay. Isn't this too much of a bully? I think so too. What the F***ck Xiao alone was about to take care of all these people. They also had anger in their hearts that needed to be vented. These trash said that their boss was mysterious and might be a good-for-nothing trash, so they didn't dare to come out and meet people. These words completely infuriated Xuanhu and the others. If not for this, how could they, who were busy cultivating and increasing their strength, have the time to care about these trash who had nothing to do? Since they couldn't wait to court death, they naturally had to help them. Who didn't know that in the hearts of the 7 absolutes of true yen, only their boss couldn't be humiliated. She was the only reverse scale in their hearts. Scolding them was fine. They were busy cultivating and might be too lazy to care. But scolding their boss, even if it was just a casual derogatory remark, would cause them to deal with it endlessly. The previous Qinghong continent was like this. They were abused by Xuanhu and the others to the point that the continent's name was changed. Even the people of the entire continent were forced to withdraw from Star Alliance Academy. They could no longer enter it in the future. Because Xuanhu and the others said that they would torture them every time they saw them. They would torture them until they didn't dare to appear in Star Alliance Academy again. At that time, Xuanhu and the others weren't as famous as they were now, nor were they as strong as they were now. They completely used blood and mud to beat the people of Qinghong continent to the ground. Thus they became famous in one battle. Boss's name couldn't be humiliated. Everything about her couldn't be blasphemed by others. At this moment, Xuanhu looked at the group of people from the high-class continent with a sneer. He clenched his fists and twisted his neck, saying coldly, "You guys don't think it's good enough for Xiaoxiao to torture you all by herself, right? That's exactly what I was thinking." He laughed and said coldly, "No matter how abnormal he is, that guy is still just an alchemist. These alchemy attacks are all empty. How can they compare to the thrill of our fists hitting flesh? Don't you think so? Come. Let's attack together and let you know what it means to be as warm as spring. What do you think?" Their bodies were covered in blood and their blood flowed like a river. Lying inside they were naturally warm. Xuanhu grinned as he said this. In the eyes of the group of people from the high-ranked mainlands, this grin was even more terrifying than the rebirth of a demon. They had always known that the 7 absolutes of true yen valued their boss who had never shown his face. This time he deliberately used this person's matter to provoke Xuanhu and the others to accept the challenge. However, when things came to a head, they realized that Xuanhu and the others valued their boss more than they had imagined. It should be known that Xuanhu and the others had never moved out together when facing challenges in the past. Most of the time, it was a one-on-one battle. Chapter 2799. This was because the combined strength of the 7 unique true yen was many times more tyrannical and terrifying than their individual strength. Their individual strength was already almost invincible in the same realm, enough to fight against a holy venerate expert of the general level. But their combined strength was comparable to an expert who had just entered the holy venerate realm. Just entered the holy venerate realm. What kind of strength concept was that? That was the mainstay of the strength of these aristocratic families from the high-class continents. At the same time, it was a level of strength that these genius disciples could never reach at their age. Only the disciples of the top aristocratic families of the 7 or 8-star domains could reach the holy venerate realm at their age. It was absolutely impossible for them. Therefore, once they fought with the 7 of the 7 unique true yen at the same time, the only result of the group battle was that they would be instantly crippled by the 7 of the 7 unique true yen. The group of people from the high-class continents shuddered in their hearts when they thought of this. The man from the high-class continent who said Xuanhu and the others bullied them was even more scared out of his wits. He hurriedly said, Wait. You people from the 7 unique true yen have an unfair advantage." The moment he said this, there was a roar of laughter all around. Unfair advantage? The 7 of the 7 unique true yen were only at the peak of the Holy Spirit realm. This group of people from the high-class continents were almost all in the Holy Venerate realm. How could they say that the 7 unique true yen had an unfair advantage? This was simply too hilarious. Were these people from the high-class continents all shameless? The crowd in the martial arts practice field all roared with laughter. Most of the people who came to watch the competition between the 7 unique true yen and this group of people from the high-class continents were from the low-class continents, and a small number of them were from the middle-class continents. There were almost no people from the high-class continents, because it was too embarrassing. Every time the people from the high-class continents faced a challenge from the 7 unique true yen, they had never won. The group of people from the high-class continents could not afford to lose face, so they naturally did not come to watch. Far away from the martial arts practice field, Luo Qingtong and the group of people from the low-class continents who brought her here came to the martial arts practice field. As soon as they entered, they heard the roar of laughter that filled the whole place. After clarifying the situation, the group of people who brought Luo Qingtong over laughed and said, "These people from high-ranked continents are getting more and more shameless." But this also proves how powerful the 7 ultimates of true yen are. Haha, you're really venting for the people of our low-level continents. That's right. A person from a low-level continent answered, "Ever since the reputation of the 7 absolutes of true yen spread in the Star Alliance, people from low-level continents like us can hold our heads high in front of people from mid-level and high-level continents. We can speak with our heads held high. The people of the 7 ultimates of true yen are the pride of our low-level continent." Yes. Hearing his voice, Luo Qingtong looked in the direction of the stage in the middle of the martial arts practice field. She smiled and said, "They are indeed my pride." Her voice was extremely soft, almost inaudible amidst the laughter of the crowd. Luo Qingtong looked at Xuanhu and the others in front of her with a smile. She did not expect that the 7 unique true yen turned out to be the 7 of them. This was really beyond her expectations, but it also seemed to be within reason. Chapter 2800. At this moment, in the center of the martial arts practice field, the man from the high-class continent who spoke heard the mocking laughter around him and said angrily, If you're so capable, then compete with us in something else. As soon as he said that, the laughter around him stopped. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and looked at the man from the high-class continent who spoke. The latter held his head high and looked at Xuanhu and the others. Let's not compete in the arena. Let's compete in something else. How about it? Do you dare to compete? As soon as he said that, Xuanhu sneered and said rudely, Are you dreaming? Why should we compete with you? Do we have to compete in something else just because you say so? Do you want to compete in embroidery? Then you'll definitely win. After all, we can't win against a bunch of weaklings in this aspect. As soon as Xuanhu said that, the man from the high-class continent's face turned purple and red. He shouted angrily at him, Xuanhu, don't be so arrogant. You may not win even if we compete in this. Humph, I think you don't dare to compete. If that's the case, then you might as well admit that your boss is a piece of trash who doesn't dare to show his face. Then we'll accept your surrender. As soon as he said that, Xuanhu's face turned furious. *CK your grandpa? What did you say? Say it again. Bang. As soon as he said that, with a loud bang, Ling Tianhan's sword stabbed into the ground in front of the man from the high-class continent. He said coldly, Let's compete. But if you lose, as he said that, his cold eyes swept across the faces of the people from the high-class continent. All of you will die here. Humiliating the boss was a crime punishable by death. As soon as he said that, everyone present was shocked. It should be known that in the competition of the Star Alliance Academy, no one was allowed to kill. Students were also not allowed to kill each other. This was the ironclad rule of the Star Alliance Academy. Did the people of the 7 Ultimates of True Yen want to challenge this iron law? While everyone was still in shock, the group of people from the high-class continent looked at the murderous faces of Ling Tianhan and the others. Their hearts beat like drums and their legs went soft. They should be able to defeat these people from the 7 Absolutes of True Yen, right? After all, the person who asked them to challenge the 7 Absolutes of True Yen had said that as long as they did so, they would definitely be able to defeat the 7 Absolutes of True Yen. With this thought in mind, everyone immediately calmed down. The man from the high-class continent gritted his teeth and said, Fine. But if we win, you will have to cripple your own strength and be at our mercy. That person had said that the more miserable these people of the 7 Absolutes of True Yen were, the better. They had already thought of countless ways to torture people. When the time came, they would certainly use them on Xuanhu and the others one by one. They would let them know what it meant to cry for help from heaven and earth. As for the high-level figures of the Star Alliance, although they protected the people of the True Spill continent, if a member of the 7 Absolutes of True Spill lost their strength and was unable to restore it, then wouldn't that be the same as a cripple? What use would that be to the Star Alliance? At that time, when would the powerhouses of the Star Alliance care about them? As the group of people from the high-class continent thought this, they all sneered. Fine. Ling Tianhan's voice was cold. Tell me, what do you want to compete in? Let's not talk about unorthodox things. We aren't that stupid. Let's see who is more like a pile of shit than you. If the content of the competition isn't acceptable to us, then you can just die. As Ling Tianhan said this, his face revealed a bloodthirsty smile filled with murderous intent. These people had been by Luo Qingtong's side for a long time. What kind of scene had they not seen? Chapter 2801. As his words rang out, the faces of the people from the high-rank continents froze for a moment. But soon they adjusted themselves. They didn't intend to use some unorthodox method to win against the people from the 7 unique True Yen. After all, there were so many people here, and the people from the True Spill continent were highly valued by the higher-ups of the Star Alliance. If they couldn't convince everyone, they certainly couldn't do anything to the people from the 7 unique True Yen. Humph. We're not as dirty as you think. As the man from the high-rank continent said this, he suddenly winked at the people from the high-rank continent next to him, and then said to Ling Tianhan and the others, We want to compete with you in gaining experience and seizing treasures. It's also a competition of strength, but it's based on who gets the treasures first. How about it? Of course, in order to show fairness and prevent others from cheating, we don't really need to gain experience and seize treasures. Instead, we'll use the virtual mirror array of the Star Alliance to simulate the scene of seizing treasures. How about it? As soon as he said this, Ling Tianhan and the others narrowed their eyes. Virtual mirror array? Sure. Ling Tianhan said in a deep voice. The so-called virtual mirror array was an array set up by the Star Alliance using 108 spirit mirrors. Its biggest function was to give the people of the Star Alliance to gain experience and improve themselves. The array formed by the 108 spirit mirrors formed a space of its own. Inside, the experts of the Star Alliance placed various scenes of the development of the secret realms. This allowed the people of the Star Alliance who entered the secret realms to experience the dangers of the secret realms' development and the difficulty of seizing treasures. This allowed them to go out alone in the future and encounter such a relic secret realm, allowing them to survive to the greatest extent. The control of the virtual mirror array was in the hands of the powerhouses of the Star Alliance. A single person couldn't control the scene inside. Even if someone wanted to tamper with the scene inside, it would be perceived by others. Therefore there was no problem of cheating. As for the scene of the secret realm inside, it was also randomly generated. The distribution of the treasures was also without the slightest trace. Using it as a competition was indeed the fairest choice. As soon as Ling Tianhan's words came out, the man from the high-rank continent laughed proudly. In that case, let's ask the elders of the Star Alliance to make the decision and open the right to use the virtual mirror array. His expression was smug. At this time, Luo Qingtong's figure had already quietly left and appeared outside the martial arts practice field. Shua. Her figure flashed as she followed the person from the advanced continent who had sneaked out of the arena and quietly headed towards the Star Alliance headquarters. Seeing him enter a luxurious mansion, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and flashed into a nearby alley. As for the man, after entering the mansion, he was immediately brought before Mo Zhuling after passing through layers upon layers of reports. You mean, those 7 people from True Spill continent have already agreed to compete with you in seizing treasures? Mo Zhuling's voice rang out. The man quickly nodded and said, Yes, young mistress, they have already agreed. Everything is as eldest young miss expected. The man's voice was full of flattery. They had dealt with Xuanhu and the others because of Mo Zhuling's instructions. However, they hadn't believed it until the person who had found them brought them to see Mo Zhuling. Only then did they realize it was true. They didn't know why Mo Zhuling hated the people of True Spill continent so much. Chapter 2802. Good. Mo Zhuling's laughter was cold and gloomy. She knew that slut Luo Qingtong was their only reverse scale. Using her as bait, she wasn't afraid that these people from True Spill continent wouldn't fall for it. This time she wanted them to suffer a fate worse than death. She wanted to see just how much pain that slut Luo Qingtong would suffer once she returned. Alright, I got it. You guys did a good job. After this matter is over, I will recommend you to my father so that you can have a meteoric rise. Yes. Thank you, eldest miss. The man from the high-class continent who came to report was overjoyed. He thought that the person who had sent them the letter to help the eldest miss hadn't lied to them. Now their meteoric rise was just around the corner. Good. You can leave first. Remember, don't let those people from True Spill continent see through any flaws. They have followed that slut Luo Qingtong for so long and have experienced so much. They won't be so easy to trick. Mo Zhuling's voice was cold and gloomy. He raised his hand and ordered the man to leave. Yes, eldest miss, you can rest assured. We all followed your orders. First, we used their boss humiliation to lure them into accepting the challenge. Then, we brought up the matter of gaining experience and seizing treasures. For the sake of their boss's reputation, they didn't hesitate to agree. Moreover, the virtual mirror array is a famous treasure of the Star Alliance. It can absolutely guarantee fairness. They won't doubt it. The man from the high-class continent flattered. As for how Mo Zhuling planned to deal with Su Xiaoxiao and the others in the virtual mirror array, he didn't dare to ask. The fairness of the virtual mirror array was absolutely guaranteed. He just didn't know what method the eldest miss had in mind. But no matter what method she had, it had nothing to do with them. He followed Mo Zhuling's gesture and left. After he left, Mo Zhuling also stood up and flicked her finger, releasing a faintly discernible black smoke message. Outside the mansion, Luo Qingtong was hiding in an alley that the man from the high-level continent had passed through before coming here. When she saw him coming out of the mansion and returning, she directly raised her hand and restrained him. Shua. The man from the high-level continent had just come out of Mo Zhuling's mansion. His body and mind were indescribably light and cheerful. He did not expect that there would be someone hiding in the alley who wanted to attack him. Just as he was about to shout, Luo Qingtong's hand was already around his neck. Oh, how dare you! The man from the advanced continent was shocked and angry. Luo Qingtong's movements were extremely fast. Before he could react, she had already grabbed his neck. However, when he snapped back to reality, he discovered that the one who gripped his neck was actually just a sacred expert-level young lady. His expression immediately became furious. immediately about to operate his strength, blast Luo Qingtong flying. However, before he could do anything, Luo Qingtong's 5 fingers had already fiercely clenched. In an instant, the power of a sacred expert level blasted into his body. In an instant, the power in his body was cut off. Then Luo Qingtong's figure fiercely pressed forward. The hand that gripped his neck lifted him up and fiercely smashed him against the wall of the alley. "Who did you go to see just now?" The young lady's voice was as calm as clouds and wind, but the man from the high-level continent was already scared silly. All the power in his body was restrained. He actually couldn't summon the slightest bit of power. Who exactly was this young lady? Chapter 2803. The man from the high-class continent looked shocked. Seeing that he didn't speak, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed fiercely, and with a crack, she began to withdraw the strength of her 5 fingers. Feeling that the neck bone in his throat was about to be broken, the man from the high-class continent was scared out of his wits. His face flushed red and he endured the feeling of being choked and hurriedly shouted himself hoarse, I'll talk." His voice was hoarse. He was clearly shouting, but because his voice was choked by Luo Qingtong's hand, it was not much louder than a kitten's voice. Hearing his voice, Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent, and she slightly opened her 5 fingers. "Speak." "Yes." The man from the high-class continent was trembling with fear. He had no idea why a powerhouse like Luo Qingtong was looking for him. Such a genius powerhouse had never been heard of in their star-desolate domain. Even a 9-star domain like theirs didn't have such a genius powerhouse at all. To be able to restrain a saint-venerable powerhouse with the strength of a saint master, how terrifying was the other party's true fighting strength. Thinking like this, he didn't dare to conceal anything and hurriedly said, I came here to see the eldest Mississippi, When he said this, he started to speak incoherently, not knowing what to say. What kind of information did the other party want to know? Looking at the ice-cold expression on Luo Qingtong's face, he was at a loss of what to do. It was Luo Qingtong who opened her mouth. "Eldest miss? Mo Zhuling?" Her voice sounded, and in an instant, the man from the high-class continent hurriedly nodded. Yes. It's the eldest miss." He carefully looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "What else do you want to know? Why did you come to see her? In addition, did she ask you to deal with Su Xiaoxiao and the others?" Luo Qingtong's words came out, and in an instant, the man from the high-class continent was scared out of his wits. You. He looked at Luo Qingtong in shock, unable to hide the horror in his heart. "You know the 7 absolutes of true yen." The man from a high-level continent racked his brains, but he didn't think that this person would be acquainted with the group from the true spill continent. Moreover, it was obvious that this person had come for the 7 absolutes of true spill. How could this be? This young girl's strength was so tyrannical. How could she know those people from true spill continent? Could it be that those people from the true spill continent were valued by the high-level figures of the Star Alliance? But the truth was that the reason wasn't because of the rumors, but because there was an extremely powerful and terrifying influence behind them? Thinking of this person from a high-ranked continent was already scared out of his wits. "Please spare my life. We really didn't mean to deal with the 7 absolutes of true yen. It's young miss who told us to do this." As his voice sounded out, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. She looked at him and said, "What did she tell you to do?" When Luo Qingtong saw this man from a high-class continent leave, she felt that something was wrong. Now that she had followed him, she really did discover that someone had deliberately planned to deal with Su Xiaoxiao and the others. But this person was actually Mo Zhuling. This woman really hated her to the bone. She was clearly the one who had stolen her man, so why did she have such a hateful appearance? Shouldn't she be the one to hate her? She was speechless. Luo Qingtong couldn't figure out how this strange person's brain worked. She was too lazy to bother with these things. She only asked the man what Mo Zhuling had told them to do. Chapter 2804. This man from the high-rank continent actually didn't know. This was because Mo Zhuling had only asked them to force the 7 absolutes of true yen to agree to join them in adventuring and snatching treasures. What happened afterwards had nothing to do with them. That's it. The man from the high-rank continent trembled as he said, "Your Excellency, this is all I know." As he spoke, Luo Qingtong instantly nodded. "Good." As she spoke, she broke the man's neck with a crack. "You." The man from the high-rank continent was shocked. He stared at Luo Qingtong with wide eyes. He didn't think that her technique would be so clean and neat. Before he could even react, he had already died under Luo Qingtong's hands. From beginning to end, he didn't even have a chance to use his strength. After he died, Luo Qingtong waved her hand and directly turned his corpse into powder. I hate it when people try to play tricks in front of me. As she spoke, she raised her hand and caught the man from the high-rank continent. After his body turned to ash, a message floated down from the air. This message had a power spell on it. As long as it was lightly touched, the owner of this spell would immediately receive a warning. Seeing the MO mark on the message, Luo Qingtong lightly snorted. She directly put away the spell and left. At this time in Mo Zhuling's mansion, after the black smoke message in Mo Zhuling's hand burned out, a mass of black fog tumbled in front of her. What did you call me for? The voice from the black fog was low and deep. It was obvious that it was covered up, making it impossible to tell whether it was a man or a woman, or what the original voice was like. But Mo Zhuling didn't care. What this person's status was had nothing to do with her. As long as it could help her deal with Luo Qingtong, it was fine. In this vast star-desolate domain, only this black fog could help her. Even her father feared this man's status and methods. He simply didn't dare to move against the people of True Spill Continent. I've already hooked those people from True Spill Continent. You may begin now. Mo Zhuling sounded impatient. As soon as she had recovered from her severe wounds, she had wanted to deal with the people of True Spill Continent. But if she wasn't fully prepared, then it would be difficult to move against them. Only those outside who didn't know the truth would think that it was a simple matter for her to move against the people of True Spill Continent. In fact, once those old fogies of the Star Alliance knew that she wanted to harm the people of True Spill Continent, they would immediately attack her. Mo Zhuling hadn't found Luo Qingtong's whereabouts yet. How could he let them know what he was thinking? Furthermore, he would not give them the chance to attack him. Mo Zhuling's voice rang out. Instantly, the black fog began to surge. Oh, you've already succeeded? Are we going to use the method we thought of before? Its voice was excited, with a hint of ecstasy and excitement. Obviously, it was happy to see Su Xiaoxiao and the others suffer misfortune. Hearing its words, Mo Zhuling suddenly laughed. That's right, we are going according to the plan we thought of before. Now, the people of the 7 absolutes of True Spill Continent have taken the bait. As she spoke to hear, she suddenly sneered and coldly said, These people are truly worthy of following that slut Luo Qingtong. They are extremely cunning and difficult to scheme against. But this time they won't be able to escape. Chapter 2805. That's right. Her voice sounded out. The black fog chuckled and said, You're too smart for your own good. Those people care too much about that slut Luo Qingtong. They can't even bear to see her slandered. Moreover, with the mirror array as a guide, it's impossible to tamper with it. Naturally, they agreed. As the black fog spoke, its voice was very happy. But they didn't think that the mirror array couldn't be tampered with. But we can tamper with it and enter the mirror array. As the black fog spoke, it laughed with satisfaction. Mo Zhuling's heart was also very happy. That's right. Those people will never know that I have the ability to enter the mirror array. Thus, if something happens to those people from True Spill Continent in the mirror array, they can't blame me. As she spoke, she covered her mouth and chuckled, her face full of satisfaction and pride. Good, let's hurry up and prepare. This time, we must make those people from True Spill Continent beg for death in the mirror array. As Mo Zhuling spoke, his laughter became increasingly joyful and happy. No one knew that from the start, her goal wasn't to make those people bet with Su Xiaoxiao and the others. What did those bets count for? So what if those people from the high-level continents won? Those old bastards of the Star Alliance, even if it was his father, wouldn't allow her to harm the people of True Spill Continent in the slightest. But what if those people from True Spill Continent were to suffer too much of a tragic blow after entering the mirror array, turning into something that was neither human nor ghost, losing all of their cultivation? So, then who could blame others? After everything was over, she would silence those people from the high-level continents. No one would know that she was the one who did this. Mo Zhuling sneered. The black fog nodded and flew into her body. Close your eyes. I'll help your soul leave your body. Also, make sure that no one outside disturbs you. I know. Mo Zhuling lightly humphed. She walked back to her bed and sat on it. I've already given the order. Go ahead. As soon as she finished speaking, a red light suddenly blossomed from her body. Then, with a swoosh, a cloud of black mist surrounded her incorporeal spirit body and rushed outside. At this time, in the main square of Star City, Su Xiaoxiao, Ling Tianhan, and the others had already arrived at the other side of the martial arts stage. This was the private property of the Star Alliance members. Normally no one was allowed to enter. The virtual mirror array was also here. At this moment, Su Xiaoxiao and Ling Tianhan, as well as the people from the advanced continents, had obtained permission from the elders of the Star Alliance to activate the mirror array. In fact, ordinary people were not allowed to activate the mirror array. Even the members of the Star Alliance had to have a certain amount of contribution points and strength in order to activate the mirror array's training function. But at this moment, because of Su Xiaoxiao and the others' request, and the elders of the Star Alliance knew of their relationship with Luo Qingtong as well as their connection with Yi Qianxian, how could they dare to neglect? If they wanted to activate it, they naturally did so. Not only that, but a group of elders had also personally come here to watch. Not for anything else, but Su Xiaoxiao and the others had made such a bet with the people from the advanced continents. How could they not come? Chapter 2806. Therefore, a group of elders from the Star Alliance had come. Moreover, such a huge commotion made everyone in the Star City's main square feel that this competition was unusual. A crowd of people flocked over, requesting to watch the competition. And the people from the high-rank continents had received Mo Zhuling's orders. They wanted Su Xiaoxiao and the others to lose miserably, losing all face in front of everyone. Thus, they requested the Star Alliance elders to open up this area so that everyone outside could come in and watch this match. In order for this match to be fair and square. These were their exact words. The request of the group of people from the high-class continents made the elders of the Star Alliance very unhappy. They had indeed planned that if the true Spill Continent's people were careless and lost, then they would help them suppress this matter. At that time, they would naturally compensate the high-rank continent's people. But these people obviously wanted the true Spill Continent's people to suffer misfortune. They didn't hesitate to use those people outside to threaten them. They wanted them to be unable to protect the true Spill Continent's people in front of everyone? These idiots. Compared to the life or death of the entire Star Alliance, what was protecting the true Spill Continent's people in front of everyone? Were they afraid of losing face? These people were really courting death. The Star Alliance elders' complexions were very ugly. As they looked at the high-rank continent's people, their eyes were like ice blades, sharp and cold. The high-rank continent's people felt a great pressure under these gazes, but they couldn't shrink back. They didn't know the true situation of the true Spill Continent. They only thought that as long as they called in those people outside, the elders would hesitate to act and not dare to do anything to them. Thus none of them shrank back. Just as they were in a deadlock with the Star Alliance elders, Ling Tianhan and the others' voices sounded out. Elders, please agree to their request. That's good. We also want everyone to see how they die in front of everyone. Ling Tianhan and the others' voices were ice cold. These high-rank continent's people insulted Luo Qingtong. If they didn't make an example out of her, then others probably wouldn't know how serious the consequences of insulting their boss were. They didn't care what these high-rank continent's people were planning or what they were relying on to deal with them. They only had one thought in their hearts, and that was, those who insulted Luo Qingtong die. Fine. The Star Alliance elders had helpless expressions. They could ignore the requests of the high-rank continent's people, but they couldn't ignore the requests of Ling Tianhan and the others. Otherwise they wouldn't ignore the rules and let them use this virtual mirror array. It had to be known that they didn't have the qualifications to use the mirror array. Who told them to be trusted followers of His Highness Young Master? The group of Star Alliance elders immediately agreed to Ling Tianhan's request. Once the enchantment was opened, the people who were crowding the square outside were let in. At this time, Luo Qingtong's figure also quickly swept towards the main plaza. However, when she arrived at the main plaza and entered this special Star Alliance location, Su Xiaoxiao, Ling Tianhan, and the others had already entered the huge virtual mirror array with the high-rank continent's people. Boom boom boom. Chapter 2807. That was where the virtual mirror array was located. The 108 spirit mirrors shone brightly at the same time, forming a huge light pillar above their heads. Inside the light pillar was the virtual secret realm they formed. Although it was called a virtual secret realm, the attacks inside were all real. They were the attacks from the spirit mirrors. Because only in this way could they achieve the effect of training. Otherwise, there would not be any sense of urgency or danger when they entered the secret realm for treasure hunting training, since there would not be any injuries. Naturally, it would be useless. However, these spirit mirrors would check the condition of the people who entered. Once they were seriously injured, they would be teleported out. Therefore, there was no danger to their lives. If not for this, the elders of the Star Alliance wouldn't have allowed Su Xiaoxiao and the others to participate in this competition. However, they didn't know that at this moment, an invisible light suddenly flew in from the outside and rushed into the mirror array. The opponent's strength and ability couldn't be restrained by the mirror array at all. Luo Qingtong stood far away in this special area and watched the invisible light rush into the mirror array. Instantly, the blood-red light in her eyes flashed fiercely. She raised her hand and summoned Little Pig. The latter was sleeping in the 9-layer exquisite pagoda and replenishing his strength. When he felt her summon, he almost fell from the sky. What's wrong? Is there any danger? It looked left and right, looking as if it was ready to attack. Luo Qingtong's face was filled with anger. Don't worry, there's no danger. This guy, could it be that she only summoned him when she was in danger? Ha. Little Pig laughed dryly and quickly changed the topic. Master, why are you looking for me? Whenever he felt guilty, he would call her master. Moreover, he called her master in a very sweet way. Luo Qingtong chuckled. However, she didn't bicker with Little Pig. This was the time to get down to business. Can you enter that mirror array? When Luo Qingtong arrived, the mirror array had already been activated. Su Xiaoxiao and Ling Tianhan had already entered. Moreover, even if they did not enter, Luo Qingtong would not stop Ling Tianhan and the others from entering without knowing the dangers inside. They were fighting for her reputation. She couldn't let them give up the opportunity to compete with others and admit defeat on the spot because of a groundless threat. This was an insult to Ling Tianhan and the others as well as a sign of disrespect. Moreover, even if he admitted defeat, he would still have to fulfill the terms of the bet. Ling Tianhan and the others would never cheat, even if the elders of the Star Alliance protected them. Therefore, Luo Qingtong would not stop them from entering. But that ray of light just now, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. If she wasn't wrong, that was what Mo Zhuling relied on to deal with Xiaoxiao and the others. She couldn't let them hurt Su Xiaoxiao and the others. Luo Qingtong's voice rang out. Immediately, Little Pig also saw the huge mirror formation. Sure. He nodded and said, let that little ball send you in. It's a sector beast. It can travel through all spaces and barriers. As its voice sounded, Luo Qingtong had already raised her hand to summon Tuanzi. However, after hearing how Tuanzi sent her in, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. Did this guy do it on purpose? Chapter 2808. Is there no other way? Luo Qingtong felt a headache coming on. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Xiao Tuanzi lay in her arms and chirped, looking very pitiful and anxious. Little Pig glanced at it, then translated to Luo Qingtong. This fellow said that if it had enough energy, it wouldn't need to do this. But it doesn't have enough energy, so it can only use that method to bring Master in. Actually, I think this method is not bad. Master, look. This virtual mirror formation is a treasure of the Star Alliance. Maybe someone can see what's inside. If people find out that you can enter this mirror formation, I'm afraid it won't be a good thing. Especially since that Mo Zhuling was able to hide from the Star Alliance and tamper with this mirror formation. I'm afraid her background isn't as simple as it seems. Luo Qingtong's brows furrowed when she heard Little Pig's words. Okay. She nodded and said to Xiao Tuanzi, then we'll do as you say. Luo Qingtong didn't know why, but she had a feeling that the ball of light that entered the mirror formation might be Mo Zhuling's consciousness. Because she wouldn't let anyone else deal with the people around her. First of all, she might not be able to trust others. Second of all, since she had such a method, she wouldn't let others know. It must be her trump card. Therefore, that ball of light might be Mo Zhuling's consciousness. If that was the case, then it would explain why Mo Zhuling wanted to lure Xiaoxiao and the others to participate in this treasure hunt. Her goal from the very beginning was probably not to win the bet, but to personally deal with Xiaoxiao and the others in the mirror formation. If that was the case, Xiaoxiao and the others would be in great danger. Since Mo Zhuling could enter the mirror formation without any hindrance, he wouldn't be restricted by it. At that time, there wouldn't be any need to stop and be sent out after being severely injured. She would definitely torture Xiaoxiao and the others inside. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she no longer hesitated. At this moment, Mo Zhuling entered the scene created by the virtual mirror array under the guidance of the black fog. He immediately began to search for the group of people from the advanced continent. She was currently in the form of a consciousness, so she had to find something to attach herself to. Otherwise, she would not be able to attack. However, at this moment she was enveloped by the power of the black fog and would not be attacked by the power of the mirror array. In fact, the power within the mirror array was completely unaware of Mo Zhuling's entry. When he realized this, Mo Zhuling became even more fearful of the power of the black fog. She already knew that this black fog was very strong, otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to suppress the trace of power in her heart and heal her body. But now, the ability revealed by the black fog was even more unfathomable. Mo Zhuling originally thought that the black fog could only bring her into the world of the mirror array and she would have to deal with the rest by herself. He didn't expect that the black fog's power would be able to make the power of the mirror array ignore her. In this way, wouldn't she be invincible in the mirror array? Chapter 2809. At that moment, Mo Zhuling wanted to laugh wildly. Haha, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. In this way, the subordinates of that B***th Luo Qingtong won't be able to escape from me. Mo Zhuling's heart was full of pride and ecstasy. She had originally planned to torture Su Xiaoxiao and the others here. She didn't expect the black fog to give her such a big surprise. It seemed that the black fog really hated Luo Qingtong to the core. In order to deal with her subordinates, it didn't hesitate to spend energy to cover the power of the mirror array. It should be known that it brought her into the mirror array and let her deal with Luo Qingtong's subordinates were two different things. Perhaps the black fog didn't need to spend too much energy to enter the array. However, Mo Zhuling believed that it would take a lot of energy to make her be ignored by the power of the mirror array and almost invincible in the mirror array, no matter how powerful the black fog was. Because it didn't mention this to her before, it seemed that it didn't plan to do so before. But she didn't know why it suddenly changed its mind. She was afraid that Luo Qingtong's subordinates might have something to rely on and run away. As expected, the black fog snorted coldly. You people from the Star Alliance really care about the safety of that B***th Luo Qingtong's subordinates. They're paying close attention to this place now. If I didn't cover your aura, I'm afraid they would have sensed it immediately. It wasn't easy to get the opportunity to lure them into the mirror array. How could I let them have a chance to run away? Go ahead and attack them. I don't believe that they'll either be dead or disabled. That B***th Luo Qingtong won't show up. As soon as the black fog finished speaking, Mo Zhuling instantly understood why it suddenly changed its mind. It turned out that those old bastards from the Star Alliance were worried that something would happen to Luo Qingtong's subordinates, so they were closely monitoring the mirror array. Unfortunately, they did not know that she had an existence like the black fog by her side. She was not afraid of their surveillance at all. Not only that, but their surveillance also gave her more leverage. Now that she was invincible in this mirror array, did she still need to be afraid of Luo Qingtong's people running away? As Mo Zhuling thought of this, he laughed coldly. At this moment, somewhere in the secret realm projected by the virtual mirror array, a group of people from a high-rank continent are fighting with a group of monster beasts. These demonic beasts were all illusions created by the power of the mirror array. The strength of each beast was arranged according to the strength of the people who came to explore the secret realm and the strength of the team. Every one of them was enough to force out the potential and strength of the people who came to explore the secret realm. Therefore, the people of these high-ranked continents had no way of dealing with the attacks of these demonic beasts. This was because the existence of the virtual mirror array wasn't meant for Star Alliance students to train their strength. Instead, it was meant for the extremely powerful people in the Star Alliance who had experienced life and death situations, to squeeze out and force out their potential. At the same time, it was also meant to let them better understand and experience the horror and cruelty of the secret realm, so that when they encountered similar scenes in the future, they would be able to deal with it better and not get into trouble. Under such circumstances, these people from the high-ranked continents were not even a match for Su Xiaoxiao. How could they deal with the attacks of these demonic beasts? You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.